Know the yang, but keep to the yin. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Can you cleanse your inner vision until you see nothing but the light? Do not eat the bread from him who has an evil eye. Also, do not desire his dainty meats. If you don't trust people, you make them untrustworthy. What does it mean to seek emptiness? Why are spiritual and religious verses so weird, so cryptic, so non-plain language? Why do they sound so obscure? I have an answer, and I'm excited to share it with you. I'm Daniel, and welcome to my channel, Just One Truth. There are a number of solid reasons for this to be the case. The first one has to do with teaching and how the mind works. The masters, the sages, the gurus of that time had very important information that meant you had to go inward. It was about you. It was about your soul. It was about yourself. It wasn't about the world at large out there. It wasn't about the community. It wasn't about all the things that you see in your physical life. It was about you. And that was not for everybody to go after. A lot of people weren't going to get that. However, the people who were, they wanted them to figure it out. Instead of just giving them an answer, they gave them some cryptic thing to figure out. And in figuring it out, the answer came to them. We know in our modern times more about the brain than they didn't even know that there was a such thing as a brain. But what we know is that there are neural pathways that grow, that develop. As you learn something, you may not know it instantly, but the more you learn it, the more you figure it out, the more the connections are made in the brain, and the more it moves from, I know that answer, to, I live that answer. I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to pay attention to it. It just happens automatically. That's a point where it's been wired into your brain. I'm sure they didn't know that part, even though we do. But what I'm sure they did know was that if you just gave somebody the answer and they took off and said, thank you, master, they didn't have the answer the same way as somebody who had to think about it, who had to ponder it, who had to figure it out, who had to metabolize it, as it were. Wrong term, I know, but really to make it a part of who and what they were. That meant turning it over and over and over in your mind and figuring it out, doing a really mental game of processing. You don't just learn the answer. You become the embodiment of the answer, and you live it without paying attention. That's simple. Another reason was based on the nature of the material. The material was very personal. It was very inward looking. If a master knowingly helping a person who is suffering and is just holding on to a lot of problems in life, told that person to look inward and to clean out all of these thoughts and these ideas and these experiences that you've had, find a way to put them behind you, to rest, to forgive whoever perpetrators were, to find some way of making this a healthier, cleaner place, then your life would be better. There's very few people that would grasp onto that, feel excited about it, and pass it along. It wouldn't take long before it got into the masses where people that were not looking inward, that weren't looking for answers, that were looking for battle, looking for, I want that land, I want those resources. Those people are bad. They live in lives in such ways that they would take something about the idea of turning inward and becoming the embodiment of love. They would discard that, and your lesson would stop right there. It wouldn't go anywhere. So you might say something like, a wise man knows to weed their garden. Bingo, metaphor. People will spread that around because they know, oh, I've got to weed my garden. The outer understanding of this without interpreting it. I've got to weed my garden, which helps my yield enhance. It makes my vegetables and my fruits grow bigger and stronger by getting rid of the weeds that are in there. The seeking person who knows that there is something embedded in there and knows the trick of making it about themselves and becoming metaphoric parallels to elements in the story knows that weeding their garden means to get rid of that stuff up here. Your mind is the garden, and the weeds are the things you don't want in there. And depending on the time, the place, and the culture, you might hear something like, seek emptiness. Same thing, weed your garden. Can you cleanse your inner vision until you see nothing but the light? Blessed are the poor in spirit. Same thing. These are the same lesson, different languages, different people, different cultures, different times, but it's the same message nested in an outer story. So there's another reason. What else to consider is that when these stories, all of the ones that I've used here, whenever they were first made and passed along verbally or written down, there was no technology. People of that time didn't read, they didn't write. Kids, when they got old enough, they apprenticed with somebody to learn what their trade was going to be. They had to survive. They helped the community. They raised goats. They raised olives. They did something that was important for the future of life. But they didn't go to school. They didn't read. They didn't write. But they were smart. And they told stories. And this was a wonderful vehicle. The storytelling and the obscure ways of telling the stories. Oh, imagine how fun that would be. If you had no cell phone, no media, no nothing, and you lived in a stone house with robes and you worked every day and that was your life, you would look forward to telling stories and passing them along, and you would want to know the puzzle of them. You would love fables. You would love all manner of teaching that was something that was spread readily around the community. In some cultures, like with Lao Tzu and Buddha, they taught things in this very obscure kind of way where you had to figure it out. It wasn't maybe that popular. If you look at those two religions, you don't see them with billions of people. They're very small by comparison. What are the biggest religions that we have today? They teach and nest the same lessons, but there are billions of people. What are those lessons nested inside of? Promise of eternal life. The stories had evolved to the point that people at some point in time understood that if you wanted this to really go, give somebody something to really hang on to. They not only wanted to teach their stories because of what was on the outer shell, but they wanted everybody else to know their story too. They wanted them to participate in that afterlife. Now that sounded like very much a closed door, and that's not true. There are other reasons to have religion. There are a lot of people who live their lives unhappy, destitute, and religion can give somebody in that position who doesn't understand. They can nevertheless take on an attitude of everything is okay. I've turned this over to a higher power. I have relinquished it to somebody else. And that can help them live a better life. They're not holding on to the things as much. But to the real seeker, they understand that it's not just about letting things go. If you can do that, fine. If you can say, boy, everything that happened to me in my past that was hurtful, poof, I'm good. It was no big deal. But if you can't do that, then you have to forgive people. You have to find a way to become the embodiment of what you want in life. And what do people want? They want love and peace and happiness. How do you get that? You become that. That's not an easy lesson for actually probably most of the people on the planet. And even though a significant part of my theme has been forgiveness and resolving those issues because that was so important to me, that's not all there is to it. You also have to let go of your prejudices, your habits, your addictions, your judgments of other people. You really have to become the embodiment of peace. I'll use Jesus here just because most people that's going to be my audience is probably aware of this. Enter into the kingdom of heaven within like a child. A child is an infant that doesn't judge. They don't care who and what you are, where you come from, what color you are, what your religion is, your size. They don't care anything about you. They just want to giggle and have fun. That's what you're supposed to get back to. Of course, as an adult, you know many more things. You know how to take care of yourself, and you know how to feed others and care for others, unlike an infant. But the part of an infant that we're looking to become, this child, to get to this peace, is to let go of all of those things. Seeking emptiness isn't simply about getting rid of what hurts you, but it's also getting rid of the things that maybe were not something that you feel very hurt by, but you realize it's hurtful to other people. And once you realize it's hurtful to other people, you realize it's actually hurtful to you, and you're the one that's doing that. Who wants that story? Who wants that lesson? And so absolutely yes, you take that very difficult, personal, inner, difficult to get to warrior journey message and put it in something that is a lot more palatable for the masses who don't want that tough stuff. It is cleverly nested inside of something that they do want. How tricky is that? This is perfect. I love it. Okay, I continue to use the term true seeker. What does that mean? Jesus said to seek, and Jesus said to knock. And if you seek, you'll find. If you knock, it'll be opened. There were no other caveats. When I talk to people about seeking and knocking, and I'll be honest, my biggest contention and my biggest conversation is with Christians as I talk about this online or other places that really don't like what I'm saying here. And when you use the term seek and knock, they will tell you that's exactly what we do. We're Christians. That's what Jesus says. Yes, they do seek and knock, but it's with caveats. To me, seeking and knocking means having an open mind. I don't have a commitment to anything. I don't have a commitment to a belief. A person who is a solid theist in any religion has a belief. They seek and they knock. But what they're seeking and knocking is understanding of their religion more, a way to grow with their religion, a way to prove their religion. So the caveat here is seeking and knocking within the framework of a pre-existing belief. So it's not open-minded seeking and knocking in a globally expansive manner. It's not open to anything and everything. It is open to what confirms your pre-existing belief. That's not the kind of seeking and knocking that I like to do, or that I advocate. This is a difficult one. You can look at somebody like that and say, yeah, you seek and knock, but not the way I do. You don't seek and knock enough. And as you can understand, that's incredibly unpopular to tell some people. When I use the term true seeking and knocking, though, that means coming at it open-mindedly. If you seek, you'll find. If you knock, it'll be open. But you have to be open to anything. I don't believe in God, but I'm open to the idea. I still have not seen evidence that is sufficient. I've seen evidence, and I've seen the evidence that they show me, but that same evidence arises in Buddhism, in Taoism, in Islam, in Judaism, in Hinduism. It arises in a lot of places. So there's something there? Yeah. But I'm open-minded to what it is. And if you've been watching these videos as I move along, you're ready for this. Let's go ahead and make up our own metaphor, our own little parable for this. A theist will seek and knock completely within their room. The true seeker opens the door and seeks within the whole house. Okay, this was one of my shorter videos and explains less, but it's a couple of very key pieces. I just wanted to pass that along. I need to get to a point where I'm just going through verses and we're going to use the keys to open them up without me having to continually explain them over and over again. And I'm practicing. I'm getting better at this, I hope. I struggle to watch my earlier videos. I honestly do. The knowledge, the information is there. The quality, not so much. I appreciate you bearing with me. And I hope you find something useful in this. There is only one truth in all of these teachings. And we're getting to it. Be safe. Find happiness. Give happiness. And weed your gardens.